We are now joined by the 5 members of the News 8 team that spent this last week in New York City reporting on relief efforts that were Indiana connected.
Our most visible members of the team, of course, were Mary McDermott and Karen Hensel. But behind the scenes were producer Steve Schweitzer and photographers Bill Fisher and Jim Hester. And we're going to talk to them right now.
Yeah, let's begin with Karen, because you were with that 62-member rescue team, search and rescue team from Indianapolis. Who are these people? Where were they headquartered, and what is their job in New York?
They are 62 firefighters and 4 dogs. They treat the dogs as much a member of their team as the 62 Indianapolis area firefighters. The thing to remember about these guys is that they are firefighters and paramedics, and they are trained, and in their gut is to go in and save and rescue people. So you have that on top of the fact that they're going in and trying to rescue or recover some of their colleagues, those 300 firefighters. It was a very emotional time for them. So they would go and work 12-hour shifts from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then switch. They had 2 different teams. So they had been on that pile of rubble since Wednesday morning when we arrived at 8:30.
Mary, a couple of miles away is you were stationed, because that's as close as you could get, and that's where our satellite truck was. And I know it was very close to the armory, and we saw from your pictures the emotion tied to that place. What was that like?
What struck me most was that these were people who were really in the prime of life for the most part. Mostly people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, it seemed. Some of the pictures were wedding pictures, that weren't that old. Some of them were with their children, their young children. And one little girl came with a little sign that she had made after she had seen, she was about 6 years old, I think. It was a little sign that she had made after she saw this coverage on television. It was a little butterfly, and it said, "Good luck in heaven." And she wanted to take that down to the site, but of course, nobody could get that close. And so they saw our truck with all these pictures on it, and she put it there. And I think that was one of the most touching things I saw all week.
Jim Hester, you were one of the photographers on the scene, and obviously at the time you had a job to do. Did the emotion of the event ever get to you, or did that happen later on?
It happened a little later, Mike. During the time we were working, we were so busy trying to make sure that our satellite feeds were taken care of and our stories were edited properly, and we were trying to make the deadlines and different things. We were busy with that, but yesterday I had a pretty tough time at church. The pastor brought the young kids down to the altar, and they were he asked them what they witnessed or what they knew about the accident or the tragedy, and it was pretty tough. I felt innocence had left these children, because they were young kids talking about the fire. They noticed that the airplanes had ran into the building. So for me, it happened a little later.
Steve, you were our producer on the scene, and I know that you've been assigned to a lot of out-of-town big stories for us. What made this one more challenging, or I would assume more challenging than any of the others you've covered?
Well, I think one of the hard things for us was to remember that our focus was on doing Indiana stories. Everywhere we looked, there were stories going on, and we needed to remember that our pictures were coming back here. So that was tough. And I just wanted to add on the emotional part. I shot the pictures of the little girl, and the tough part of that was to keep it in focus. Because my eyes were teared up, and as I finished it, I looked up, and there was Leon Collins, a reporter who used to work here, and he was sharing the truck with us, and he was crying like a baby, and we were both crying, and we saw a lot of hardened reporters with tears coming out of their eyes at various points. The emotion was pretty tremendous.
Bill Fisher, you're a Vietnam veteran, and you have pictures that you brought back from the war. You were a photographer there on the ground. Did that prepare you for anything you saw in New York last week?
Not really. I think when you're in a war, people are expected to die. I mean, people die in wars, but this one came as such a shock to everybody and such a surprise that there's no way you could prepare yourself for this.